I'd like to begin here by welcoming you to this session on information and data privacy, part 1. And here is today's agenda. We'll be covering what data privacy is, its importance, and then describe some principles and practices of data privacy. We'll also discuss how to build a culture of data privacy in organizations, and with examples of building skill and developing skill within teams for data privacy. We'll focus on 2 data privacy principles today, namely data minimization and security, and strategies for implementation. And lastly, we will introduce some US laws and Washington state laws related to data privacy. We hope that at the end of this session, you will be able to understand the importance of data privacy, enhance the culture in your organization related to data privacy, apply data minimization and security strategies in your work, and also be familiar with federal and state laws. We will just introduce these laws, and hopefully within your organization, you'll be able to look into it with greater detail to ensure compliance. So to start off with, to have everyone on the same field level, what is data? Data is any information that is collected, stored, used, and sometimes shared in organizations, and for various purposes. This helps organizations deliver services, measure impact, report to funders, monitor programs, and other reasons. What is data privacy? In this age where so much data is collected, especially personal information, there is great concern about how to keep the data safe and secure. So data privacy refers to practices and principles that govern the collection, use, storage, and sharing of personal data. So this specifically relates to personal data. And broadly, there are 3 categories of personal data. That's personally identifiable information, also referred to as PII. And this would be data that allows identification of individuals, or that the information can be traced back to specific individuals. So this would include examples of like full name, phone numbers, email addresses, social security numbers, date of birth. The second category, personal information, or PI, includes all PII and also these other items. And this information can link to individuals either directly or indirectly. And Ashinafi will be discussing this in greater detail. And the third category is sensitive personal information, which is very vulnerable to misuse, and it is a subset of personal information. And so when combined with other information, it can lead to adverse outcomes and potentially cause harm. So for example, racial information that can be misused and that could lead to discrimination. Some key aspects of data privacy. When we hear about data privacy, we will often talk about control, protection, and compliance. What is control? Control is the ability of individuals to be able to decide how their information is collected, who accesses the information. And protection, it safeguards the personal information from unauthorized access and misuse. Compliance, organizations must adhere to regulations and laws that protect the personal data. And some examples of the regulation and laws include the European Union Data Protection Regulation and the California Consumer Privacy Act. And these are very robust regulations or laws. So just briefly, we often hear data privacy and data security. Is there a difference or is there not a difference? There is a difference, and both of them are closely related, but they're not interchangeable. So data privacy refers to the handling of personal information. And this it also handles personal data in ethical and responsible manner. Data security, on the other hand, protects the sensitive information from misuse and from unauthorized access. So we can think of these two as being together, working hand in hand. So data privacy supports data security by identifying who has access, when it can be accessed, and how. And the purpose would be that it needs to be any sensitive information or personal data can be accessed for legitimate purposes. On the other hand, data security supports data privacy by ensuring that only those authorized individuals can access the information, and they're accessing the information for the specified legal purposes. All right. So one specifies who accesses the information and how it's accessed and for what purpose. And that's data privacy. Data security comes along and ensures that only individuals who are authorized for the specific legitimate purposes can access the information. Why is data privacy important? There are many reasons. Here we've listed some of the reasons. Protection of personal information. Data privacy ensures that individuals' personal information is protected from unauthorized access and misuse. Trust and confidence. Data privacy is crucial for establishing that trust level. Organizations that have demonstrated they handle personal information with integrity and with responsibility, that would likely increase and foster stronger relationship between individuals and the organization. And then with legal compliance, organizations must and are required to comply to have measures that will protect that personal information. And this helps organizations because it prevents any legal repercussions or hefty fines. And fourthly, data privacy is essential because it upholds the ethical and responsible collection, use, storage, and disclosure of information. So by adhering to the proper use, it increases the trust. And it also speaks to requesting proper consent from participants or from individuals before the data is collected. Sorry, two more here. For data-driven innovation, data privacy not only is about protection, but it also fuels innovation. So when organizations handle data appropriately and responsibly, individuals are more willing to share the data. With increased amount of data, then it can drive personalized experiences and also enhance research and development. And finally, is preserving individual autonomy. So data privacy enables individuals to maintain control over their personal information. So individuals can decide how their data is collected, used, and shared. And some organizations do allow individuals to update their information. All right, so as we come into here on practice principles, I'd like to ask Jen to drop a link to a document that has all these description for each of these principles. So once Jen provides that link, then you're able to access that document from the Google Drive. Fair Information Practice Principles, or FIPS, also known as FIPS, is a broad category of principles that organizations use when evaluating information systems, processes, programs, and activities that affect individual privacy. Has everyone been able to access the document? Please let us know if you encounter any challenge accessing the document. Okay, great. Thank you, Maura. All right, so I'll continue here. And FIPS, they're not a requirement, but they are principles that organizations apply to their practice according to the mission and privacy program requirements. I'm just going to touch briefly on each of these items as we go through. And then as we look at this, I'd like for you to reflect and think about, for your specific organization, does any of these resonate with you? And which ones resonate with you, whether it has been implemented or is in the process of being implemented. To start off with access and amendment, this allows individuals to access PII, and individuals have the ability to update it as needed. Accountability, this speaks to the culture of organizations. Organizations must adhere to the principles and relevant privacy regulations. And it also speaks to skill development and training for teams and organizations. The third one, authority. So only organizations that have legal authority should handle PII and need to do so for specific legal purposes and to share that authority in their privacy notices. For individual participants, this relates to giving individuals the ability to make decisions about their own PII and consent about collection, use, and sharing of the information. Minimization. Organizations should handle PII that's necessary and relevant for the organization to fulfill a purpose. And it also speaks to retention. There is a set time to retain data, so appropriate time to retain for different PII. And purpose specification and use limitation. This relates to, again, consent, so individuals know the exact purpose for which the information is collected, and they would provide consent. Quality and integrity. This relates to organizations ensuring that the information that's collected is accurate, timely, and relevant, and that it fairly represents the individuals. Security. This means that organizations need to have measures in place. It could be physical measures, technical measures, administrative measures to ensure that the information such as PII is protected. And lastly, transparency. Organizations need to communicate their information policies and practices regarding PII. So in this slide here, what resonates with you related to data privacy for your organization? Do any of these principles resonate with you? And if you could put it into the chat, principles that resonate with you and your organization. Could be items that are currently being practiced or items that are planned to be implemented. If you'd like to unmute and share an example, please feel free to do so. Yes, Austin, access and amendment is the goal that your organization has. Thank you. Any others? Thank you, Maura, that you have most of the principles in place at Listen and Talk. Yes, it can be challenging to track security as things evolve. Yes. All right. You may continue to enter any of your responses in the chat, and I'll proceed to the next slide just to let everyone know for our 3 sessions with this series, we will be covering some of these principles. So for example, accountability. Jen will be speaking about organization culture and training today. And and we have individual participation. Jen will be speaking about consent next week. Data minimization, Asha and Alfie will be covering that in greater detail today. We'll cover data retention, I believe, if not the second part, the third part. Purpose specification and use limitation, will be covering that in the second part. Security, Jen will be covering that today. And transparency will be covered in the second part along with consent. All right. Any quick questions for clarification at this point? Or comments? Okay, so we'll proceed. And now I'd like to invite Jen to continue our discussion on data privacy and a culture of data security. Jen, over to you.
Thank you, Sui Mei. So the effectiveness of an organization's data privacy strategy relies heavily on the skills and awareness of its employees. And so ensuring that staff are well trained in data privacy best practices is really crucial for maintaining compliance, reducing the risk of breaches, and also just fostering that culture of security within the organization. Next slide. Even the best privacy policies on the planet are useless unless everyone with access to the data both know and follow those priorities. So prioritizing education of staff and volunteers who have access to information about the importance of data privacy is really important. One way to think about this might be to think of the life cycle of a staff member or a volunteer. Hopefully, at orientation, all the staff, regardless of their role, are trained on data privacy in some form or another. There are numerous online resources available for free to help with this, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Ongoing professional development is also key. So staff needs should be assessed regularly, and staff with different functions may have different needs related to training around data privacy. tailoring your trainings to those expressed needs will really help to increase engagement with the information that you present and also with the uptake of the recommended actions. And don't forget about separation. When a staff or volunteer leaves your organization, consider what data, devices, or materials need to be returned or secured. And make sure that you know the steps for proper data transfer or destruction. And that we're going to talk a little bit about that in the third training, I believe. Next slide. There are several strategies for promoting security awareness. The first is leadership involvement. Of course, we know active participation from leadership is crucial. Many of you, if not all of you here today, are leaders in your organization, and you are being actively involved by attending these trainings. When leaders engage in data security initiatives, they help to set an example, and they also can help to identify weaknesses in the organization's security posture. The next is resource allocation, ensuring that adequate resources are dedicated to security programs is important. So that includes budgeting for training, tools, and technology updates. It is helpful to utilize champions or influencers within your organization. So identify key employees who can advocate for security awareness. These individuals can help drive positive change and encourage their peers to adopt secure behaviors as well. A strong culture of security in nonprofits relies on comprehensive training and active participation by everyone. So let's take a look at some of the possible threats that we're facing here. Next slide. So some of you may have attended the training on cybersecurity put on by Inclusive Data, which was offered through the Communities of Opportunity program. We're not going to get into great depth here, but as we may said, data privacy and data security go hand in hand. So if we're to foster a culture of data privacy and security, it's important to know what kind of data privacy threats we might face as an organization. This slide shows the general categories of threats, and then I'll walk through the next few slides where we will go through examples in each category and ways we can address those. Next slide. This first table shows all of the types of security threats that are under the category of social engineering, right? So this is essentially engaging with people, right, one-on-one to try to get access to data. So some of these you may be familiar with. Phishing is using email, phone, text, or social media communication to entice you to click on a malicious link, download infected files, or reveal personal information like passwords and account numbers. Phishing scammers sometimes masquerade as something they're not, and it's not always obvious. Sometimes phishers are trying to extract data like email addresses, dates of birth, or phone numbers that they'll later put together with other information that they obtained from phishing. How can we address this? Well, of course, we want to stay alert when we're processing emails and not click on, download, or open attachments from any unknown or unexpected sender. Also, be aware of inconsistencies in email addresses or web addresses, slight differences that might actually indicate that the site that you're dealing with or the individual who's emailing you is not who they appear to be. Pretexting involves composing a plausible scenario or pretext to convince you to share valuable or sensitive data. For instance, a pretexter might impersonate someone in a position of authority, such as a tax official. After explaining the made-up context that they have, the pretexter will ask questions to try to elicit personal or sensitive information. Ways we can address this are to always ask to see identification and cross-check visitors against a list of expected people. Also, if you're not sure or something just doesn't seem right, it's okay for you to call the facility that the person claims to be representing to verify their identity. The final social engineering threat we're going to talk about is tailgating or piggybacking. And this is when an attacker gains access to a facility by asking the person entering ahead of them to hold the door or grant them access. Sometimes the person impersonates a delivery driver or other person who might be likely to enter your facility in order to increase their chances of gaining access. Once inside, the attacker can observe or scope out the facility and gain access to unattended devices or confidential files. Next slide. Unsecured networks are involved when you transmit data, when you're transmitting data via unsecured networks, including Wi-Fi networks. It can make it easy for attackers to intercept and steal your data. So how can we address this? Assure that your organization's network or networks is professionally set up and or managed. Check that all employees know not to do work with sensitive data over unsecured Wi-Fi networks, right? Like maybe they're at a coffee shop or at the airport and they're doing work with sensitive information because that's convenient, but that network is not secure. Outdated security software is the next threat. Security systems and software require consistent updating and patching. Security software makers are constantly monitoring their products and release a new version to correct vulnerabilities that they have detected. Once detected, those vulnerabilities become known by would-be attackers. So if you're using an outdated version of the software, you're putting your security at risk. How can we address this? Well, of course, assure that your organization has reputable security software installed on all devices that are handling sensitive information, and make sure that this software is regularly updated and patched. Malware is software that can infiltrate a computer system to steal, damage, or disrupt data. Installing malware is one of the reasons cyber attackers try to get you to click on links and files in phishing and other social engineering attacks. So you can address malware by addressing the social engineering approaches that we discussed in the last slide. Finally, on this slide, lack of encryption or insecure storage or insecure cloud services. Once in your possession, data that isn't stored properly, whether it's in the organizational network or in cloud storage, is at risk of being stolen, intercepted, copied, or corrupted. Likewise, if you're sending sensitive data back and forth, it's not encrypted, it could get intercepted and accessed in that process. How can we address these? Well, be cautious in selecting your cloud storage vendors. Ask about the security features and measures. Not all cloud storage softwares or services are created equal. Be sure you're using a means of transmitting sensitive data that is aligned with the industry standard data privacy guidelines. Next slide. There's a couple more data privacy threats that we need to be able to recognize. Data in transit. When data has to be transferred from one location to the other, it's vulnerable to interception, attack, and being stolen. So how should we address this? Well, make sure that when traveling, you work on devices that are secured, and you're also not leaving devices unattended in cars or in a coffee shop while you go to the bathroom, right? That's very easy for people to intercept. What about data sold to third parties? Unless you have strict control over the data that your organization shares with third parties, it's possible to risk the privacy of your clients and their data. So if your organization engages with third-party vendors, have a clear understanding of how the data you share with them will be used and whether it will be further shared with another entity. Finally, BYOD culture, bring your own device to work culture. If an organization decides that employees can use their own devices to do work with sensitive data, this can be a risk, right? Many personal devices lack the same level of data security as company-owned devices. And in addition, personal devices might be accessed by others in the device owner's life who may access the sensitive data by accident or on purpose. Ways to address this? Well, While using personal devices for work might be convenient, it presents additional data privacy risks. So if personal devices are to be used, have a standard for data security and assure that your employees are trained and evaluated on it regularly. Okay, Sweeney, I think. Oh, now I'm passing it to Ashanafi.
Okay, thank you. So now we are gonna talk about data minimization and why it matters for organizations. Before defining what does data minimization mean and what are the strategies to data minimize, we'll first talk about concepts that are important to apply data minimization. So in this section, we will explore types of data, the risk involved, and practical strategies for collecting only what is necessary. That will help us to ensure we protect community trust while still meeting our service and reporting goals. Okay. Yeah, you have seen this slide from Sumit. So what's the data? As Sumit said, data includes factors, numbers, and details that help us demonstrate our impact. But it is beyond the number in a computer, right? Every data point is tied to a real person, which is why handling it responsibly it matters a lot. So before I discuss the type of data that I think are important for community-based organizations, we want to show you the type of data you collect. So during registration, we asked you what kind of information or data you collect and store. This is the result. So as you can see from this chart, the majority of you collect service-related data, which could mean like client interaction, participation records, or service usage. And this is followed by demographic data, and which often includes personal identifiers like age, race, or zip code. These are information that are essentially sensitive under privacy law. And many organizations also collect program-related and evaluation data, which are essential for reporting and performance improvement, but can contain personally identifiable details if not carefully managed. And finally, we have a donor-related and financial data, which make up a smaller portion, but they are usually higher confidentiality risk because of potential exposure of financial and contact details. So we also asked you, what do you use the information you collected for? And the majority of you responded vendor reporting, which makes sense since many organizations are accountable to multiple vendors who require outcome tracking, impact measurement, and this was followed by, again, program evaluation and performance improvement, and showing that most organizations are using data not just for compliance, but also to enhance their services. It was followed by funding, self-evaluation, grant application, reporting, and program service and delivery. So we were surprised to see that only a few of you mentioned you use data for grant application. That's what we want to look more, but it's not part of this presentation. So these are the type of data relevant for community-based organizations. And when we talk about data privacy and management, it helps to understand the different types of data organizations typically handle. And this may not be the exhaustive or detailed list or a list of types of data, but we can broadly categorize them into these four: personal, sensitive, program service, and aggregated data. So understanding these distinctions help determine what level of protection each data type requires and sets the foundation for responsible collection, storage, and sharing practices. So these are the personal data, or the personal data refer to information that can directly identify someone, such as their names, address, phone number, or date of birth. Even basic demographic data often falls into this category, and this information are generally considered as sensitive under privacy laws. So the second type of data is sensitive data. This is a higher risk category that includes details about someone's health, immigration status, income, or other personal circumstances. These types of data carries a higher risk if misused, meaning if mishandled, this type of data can cause real harm or stigma for people we serve. For example, immigration status or mental health information can lead to stigma or even legal consequences if leaked. Washington's new My Health, My Data Act expands protection even for organizations that aren't traditionally health providers. Means in this act, organizations that are not covered by HIPAA are covered. So that this means we all need to take this categories or those type of data very seriously. Otherwise, we would be liable for this leakage. So there is a program or service data which tracks participation, for example, attendance, referrals, or service outcomes. This data helps evaluate how well programs are working or who they are reaching. And finally, we have aggregate data, which combines information from multiple individuals into summaries or totals. These are usually found when we write reports, right, such as the number of clients served or the number of outcomes achieved. For instance, we could say 40% of clients are under age 25, or we can use 120 households served in specific zip codes. So rather than sharing individual age category, for example, we can say well, under 25 or 18 to 25 something. So this aggregate data will help us to avoid re-identification of people. While this data is less risky since it is aggregated, however, it still needs careful management to ensure no one can be re-identified, especially in small communities. So as I said earlier, understanding these distinctions will help us to determine what level of protection each data type requires and sets the foundation for responsible collection, storage, and sharing practices. So we have a question. We would like to have a breakout session or breakout rooms, and we want you to discuss what sensitive data does your organization collect. In other terms, what do you regard sensitive data in your organization? And we want you to discuss within a group, and we want you guys to report to us back if there is difference in categorizing which one is sensitive and not among organizations.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ashinafi. I'm going to put folks into rooms. They will be random, and you will be with 2 or 3 other people. And Ashinafi, how long do you want folks to talk?
Okay, so it's gonna be 5 minutes. Then we will bring you back. We'll force you to come back after 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you a little warning when the time is getting short, and I'm going to open the rooms now. There you go. They should be open.
Okay. I'm talking with my group. They kick back here.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We're okay.
Oh, okay, so thank you. We'll come back again. Okay, was there any difference in how organizations define or classify sensitive data? Or okay, first let's start. What data did you consider sensitive? Shall I call just random room number? Or... okay, room 4.
Demographic data.
Demographic data, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay.
I'm group 1. I can share, and yeah, some thoughts about the basic data may not be identified or categorized as sensitive data, but there's one member point out some opinions about just like immigration status and sexuality and social security numbers maybe looks like more sensitive than the basic, the house, your location, your name, because those are pretty normal information we need to collect when we serve the client, right? So we just think about others sensitive data that we might not collect, you know, as a normal status.
Yeah, thanks. That's exactly okay. So who is can share?
Ashanafi, Mora, I believe Mora had her hand raised just now.
Okay, Maura. Sorry.
Yeah, we were group 6, and it was very similar in that we have the demographic information about the children we're serving and their parents. We had a little bit of a difference as the kids get older. The information is more connected to the school districts that they're in, the schools that they're attending. So and we didn't really talk about any of the data being hard to categorize. We didn't collect social security numbers. Safia and Hebe, I can't remember. I don't think we talked about whether we collect immigration status, but we don't do that at Listen and Talk. So that was kind of where it's at.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, it's the
thank
same
you
thing for us as well. You're right. We did not talk about the immigration status of our families, neither social security numbers. But yeah, those are a little bit kept off the loop. But we do collect demographics.
Yeah, okay, thank you for sharing. I hope that, I mean, it's pretty much the same. So I hope that it's gonna be addressed through the following presentations. If it's not, if you have questions, we can address them later on. So I'm just gonna proceed to the presentation. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna talk about data minimization, but about okay, if collecting data carries the risk of breach or legal exposure, why are we collecting data in the first place, right? It's first, before I just advocate about data minimization, I want to first tell that data has it's important, right? We are data is essential because it serves multiple powerful purposes. So the first one, it ensures excellence in service delivery. So data helps us to understand who we are reaching, where the data or where the problem exists or where gaps exist, and whether our services are equitable, accessible across the communities. And secondly, it fulfills vendor accountability. Our organizations like King County or private foundations expect us to show impact, not just the stories, but evidence that our work makes measurable difference, right? And the third importance is it drives continuous improvement by analyzing, as you showed, or as your responses show, by analyzing outcomes or identifying trends, we can strengthen programs, target resources, or make smarter and evidence-based decisions. So finally, perhaps most importantly, good data practice builds trust. When we handle information carefully and transparently and respectfully, we show our communities that we value their dignity and their stories. So I cannot emphasize enough that collecting data isn't just an administrative task, it's a commitment to integrity, equity, and accountability. So since we accept the fact that data represents personal stories, identities, and experiences, when clients have or share their details with us, that means they are trusting us. Our responsibility is to treat that trust with care, just as much as we would with the people themselves. Every piece of data tells us a story. Understanding where data types of information fall on the privacy spectrum helps us make informed choices. And the key question to always ask is, before you collect information or before you start developing data collection tool, we should always ask, do we actually need this data to serve our clients effectively while respecting their privacy? If the answer is yes, then we will probably need to collect it. If the answer is no, we don't have to collect. So Sumi has presented this same content. I just brought it here to emphasize it. So when we talk about data privacy, we are talking about trust. the trust that community members place in your organization when they share their stories, experiences, and information. At its core, we can say privacy means respecting and protecting the trust, right? It's not just a technical requirement, it's a matter of dignity. So safeguarding information shows respect for the individuals we serve. So we can say, just in general, there are 4 key reasons privacy matters for organizations. The first is to protect clients from harm and discrimination. And the second could be to build trust with your clients, vendors, and partners, showing that your organization is responsible and reliable, and to ensure legal compliance with privacy regulation like HIPAA or the Washington Privacy Act. And the fourth, it could be to prevent misuse of sensitive information, whether accidental or intentional. So privacy isn't just about technology, it's about values and ethics in how we manage the data entrusted to us by our community. So now I'll go directly to data minimization. Now that we understand why privacy matters, the next step is to think carefully about how much data do we actually need to collect in the first place, right? That brings us to the principle of data minimization. So data minimization means only collecting or storing information organizations need to fulfill a specific mission or service or reporting requirements. So what are the questions we need to ask, or what are the things that we need to consider when we draft the data collection tool or when we develop data collection methods? The first is to see balance requirement by the vendor and consider state privacy laws and community trusts. And the second is to reduce risk. We can reduce risk by collecting less data. That means avoiding collecting data that we don't really need to serve the community or that are not required by the vendors. And the most important thing is to ask, do I really need this information for the service, for the compliance, or for reporting? If not, we don't need to collect it, right? So in Washington, data and evidence truly drive decision. So our policymakers, vendors, and community leaders all depend on accurate, trustworthy information to guide programs and investments. On the other hand, Washington has some of the strongest privacy protection in the nation, including laws like HIPAA, FERPA, or My Health and My Data Act. But in a state that values both evidence and privacy, data minimization is critical. So what it means is we need to collect only the essentials. If we collect only essential data, we achieve 3 things. First, we will reduce liability. In other terms, fewer data points means fewer risk if a breach occurs. And the second is we will build community trust, especially among immigrants, refugees, and others who may fear data misuse. And the third is we will ensure compliance, aligning our practice with the state's strict privacy and ethical standards. So in a data-driven state like Washington, being selective about what we collect isn't a limitation. It is good governance and a sign of respect for the people we serve or our communities. So what are the practical strategies, right? Now that we have covered why data minimization matters, we'll see how. So, but before that, we would like to hear what are the data minimization practices you do in your organization, respective organizations. So we will again have a breakout session, and we would like you to talk on these 2 questions. So the first 4 rooms, room 1 to room 4, please discuss the first question, and room 5 to room 8, please, or the last, please talk about the second question. Again, we'll give you 5 minutes for this conversation, and then when you return, we'll do a quick brief as before, and we'll share our experience. Okay, thank you. Welcome back again. So we will ask 1 or 2 rooms from the first 4 rooms.
Can I talk like next week?
Yeah, sure.
I cannot attend with this your group again because I cannot continue because we had the other meeting on that day, that time.
Oh, sorry.
I cannot continue with you guys next week, Thursday.
Yeah, okay, so we will record the session, and I hope that you will be able to find that. And
Oh,
if you have
okay.
any questions,
Wonderful. Yeah.
we'll be
can
happy
read.
to answer those
We
questions. Yeah,
can
thank you.
watch later. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. So group 1 to 4, is there anyone who willing to share their discussion?
I mean, I was in group 6, and
Okay.
as far as the first question, we just talked about some of the things that we really don't need, the information that we don't need, because they don't necessarily serve our families and we don't collect them, would be like social security numbers, immigration status, because none of our services are tied directly to those things. But at the same time, we also have things like income and their marital status that is also not directly tied to any of the services that we offer, but it's something the funders would require certainly most of the times. So we collect those. So the minimization strategy was not collecting any of the stuff that we don't need, the social security numbers, the immigration statuses, because it's not tied to any of the services that we offer. So that was number 2, but I think we also answered. No, we didn't even touch on number 1. We just had number 2.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's what we asked you to do. So yeah, thank you very much. Okay, others? Room 1? Okay, anyone from room 2?
Clara in the chat has said that her organization does review forms and databases for the purpose of their funders.
Oh, okay, thank you, Clara. Okay, that's yeah, that's a very nice strategy. Okay.
For me, I'm a room 1 with Margarita. Yeah. My company is had the privacy form. Yeah, and consent form. It's the program, and we had the form. We just follow with the agency provide form for us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I am a one due to metadata for work. For work only. Yeah.
Okay, so for time purpose, we are not gonna cover the practical strategies for data minimization, and we will cover it next week, and we'll continue this discussion next week, just for the sake of time, so that we will not keep you here more than you planned. So we'll go to the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashanafi. So we will continue with data minimization, specific strategies for implementing data minimization next week. And we'll also cover the introduction to laws next week. And we'd like to take this time to open up the room to any questions that you have on material that we had just covered today. So feel free to raise your hand or put it into the chat, and we'll respond to your questions. And at the same time, I'm going to share the link to the evaluation form so that you're able to access the evaluation form and provide us feedback as we address questions.
I copied the link into the chat for those who want to click on it there, or you can use the QR code.